Hello there and welcome to the Sleepy Alchemist. Tonight, we journey through twisting forests, forgotten temples, and the deepest pockets of memory, only to lose them all again by the time the candle flickers out. You'll meet a man who doesn't know who he is, only that something ancient and enormous is pulling him forward to a door that opens only when you forget your name. Imagine the sky dimming behind mountains that don't seem to cast shadows, while fig trees ripen without seasons. A breeze you don't quite remember how to describe, and in that stillness, someone awakens. You probably want to know why a person would ever want to forget who they are, but here's the twist. Maybe he didn't want to. Maybe it wasn't a choice. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The man wakes up beneath a fig tree. The fruit is heavy above him, one split open and leaking juice onto his shoulder. He doesn't flinch. He doesn't know why that should bother him. There's a scroll clenched in his fist. He doesn't remember grabbing it, doesn't even remember sleeping. His hands ache, as if they've written too much, stirred too long, or held too tightly onto something they should have let go. His robes, tattered, ash-coloured, faintly smelling of vinegar and iron, suggest he might be a traveller or a vagrant or something stranger, but he knows none of this. The scroll is sealed with a sigil, an Ouroboros coiled around an open door, a symbol that looks too old to mean anything useful. He breaks the seal. The scroll reads in blotchy, fading ink. The door opens only when you forget your name. Odd thing to wake up to. He stands shakily, joints popping like old corks. A nearby brook chatters with indifference. He tries to speak. Nothing comes. No name. No memory. No where was I, or who am I? Just a blank, soft as milk. His stomach grumbles. Ah, so he remembers hunger. He heads toward the scent of wood smoke, over a hill thick with yellow grass and sleepy crickets. A village stirs low-thatched roofs, smoke curling upward, a dog barking at the sun like it's got a grudge. A black cat slinks past him, pauses, and hisses. Oddly, not at him, at his shadow. He arrives at the edge of the village by mid-morning. A child stares at him from behind a fence. "You're not from here," she says, matter of fact. He shrugs. She nods, as if she expected that. Strangers don't last long. The town is called Veln. At least, that's what the carved sign says, half covered in moss. A woman selling turnips eyes him sideways. "Name?" she asks. He blinks. "You do have a name?" "No." She frowns and taps her temple. "That's not good. Not here." This place is obsessed with memory. It's in the way the villagers greet each other, listing full names, grandmothers, and the year they first tasted barley. Memory is ritual here, proof that you're real. A man in a long green coat approaches him and taps the scroll. "Where'd you get that?" "I don't know." The man grunts. "You want to stay. You'll need a name. Go see Elder. House with the blue roof." He finds Elder in a house that leans ever so slightly to the left, like it's too tired to stand properly. She's blind, or seems to be, but moves like she isn't. Smells like lavender and scorched cedar. She doesn't ask his name. Instead, she presses a hot cup of bitter tea into his hand. "You've forgotten something," she says. "But it's not just your name." He drinks. The tea tastes like regret. She leads him to the window, fogged with her breath, and draws a rough map with one shaking finger. Mountains, rivers, a symbol that looks like a temple or a door. The ink from the scroll reappears in the corner of the steam as if burned into the glass. He gasps. "You're not the first," Elder murmurs, "but you might be the last." Mainstream fact time. In medieval Europe, memory was often tied to morality. Forgetfulness was viewed as a sign of weakness or even sin. Monks kept elaborate memory palaces in their minds to retain scripture and history. Now here's the fringe twist. Some ancient orders believed that true enlightenment came only by unlearning everything you were. There's mention, though not in the mainstream texts, of doorwalkers, alchemists who erased their own identities to access sacred places hidden from the mind. And here's where historians still argue, was this a metaphor for spiritual death, Or did these so-called doorwalkers really believe that forgetting opened something real? The man listens, and with every word he feels something sliding from him, memories like brittle scales falling off a snake. Elder finishes the map. It's simple, made of curves and fog. Don't follow it, she warns. Unless you're prepared to disappear. He nods. But he's already halfway gone. Outside, the wind shifts. The trees lean in like they want to whisper, and the scroll in his pocket warms. The road into Veln had been silent, but the road out whispers like a quilt pulled over a dreaming child. He leaves behind the village with its obsession for names, stepping into a world that doesn't quite seem to care whether he remembers who he is. The map Elder had drawn fades by midday. The steamed glass memory vanishes into cool air, and the man realizes he never even asked her how to follow it. But then, how does one follow a path to forgetting? He finds a dirt trail veiled in cattails and mist, one that curls between leaning birch trees. His feet seem to know where to go. He doesn't remember choosing them, but they're choosing for him now. By sunset, he's reached a clearing where smoke spirals up from chimneys that sag under the weight of too many winters. This place isn't marked on any map, not even the one that evaporated. A wooden sign hangs crooked on rusted hinges. Kerin's Mill, founded 862, still remembering. Evening falls with a silken hush. He slips into a tavern that smells of barley, sweat, and candles burning down their wicks. Inside, no one talks loudly. They chant their orders. 2 ales for the son of Tom, grandson of Mirin, who watched the moon die in 871. Roasted marrow for Rover, once of Bryn, who forgot her brother's name but not his birthday. Every sentence is a tether to memory. He sits quietly at the bar, heart thumping like it knows it's in danger. The bartender, a man with a braid of silver hair that coils like a snail, eyes him. Name, I don't know it. The man leans forward. You're going to want to be careful saying things like that around here. A woman nearby mutters, it's contagious. Forgetting. The bartender sighs, then sets down a bowl of something steaming and red. This'll buy you a few minutes. Tastes like remembering your first fire. The alchemist, though he doesn't remember the word yet, eats. It's a bitter stew with an aftertaste of pine needles and bone marrow, and for a split second, he sees it. His hand, once delicate and clean, now scarred, grinding something pale and pungent into a mortar. A candle flickering low, pages soaked in vinegar, the sound of glass cracking under stress. Then it's gone. He leans back. A man beside him whispers, "You're not from here." "Clearly not," he replies. "They'll ask you to leave. We're a town of records. Even our shoes are labeled. I'm just passing through. Aren't we all?" The man leans in, whispers lower. "They say north of here is a forest where memories grow on trees. Names hang like fruit, but no one picks them because you might end up with someone else's life in your head." The alchemist lets the words drift into him like incense. He wants to laugh, but doesn't remember how that sounds. As he prepares to leave, an old woman on the threshold of the tavern grabs his arm, her eyes clouded, voice rasping like wind in a dry well. "You're going the wrong way," she says. "To forget, you must first lie." He frowns. Lie. Names are weight. Memory is a leash. Cut it or twist it, but don't carry it. He pulls away gently, but her grip is strong, sinew and bone. "Trade a name that isn't yours," she insists. "That's the first right. Say something false, and the truth will start to loosen its grip." Outside, the moon is crooked in the sky. He walks until he finds a man sitting by a field cart, hawking apples and bread. The man offers him food in exchange for something simple. "Your name," the vendor says. "That's all I ask," and the alchemist, now understanding something essential, smiles faintly and says, "My name is Dorin," a lie. But as the vendor hands him bread, soft and steaming, the alchemist feels a strange shift, not a forgetting, not yet, but a displacement, like his mind just made room for something else by sweeping a little dust under the rug. He eats in silence. The vendor hums a tune that sounds like it should be familiar. That night, in the field just beyond the village, he dreams of golden doors sunken into cliffs, of voices calling names that dissolve as soon as they're spoken, of a temple surrounded by sand, buried in the sky instead of earth. One door glow. One door weep. One door whisper. You are almost ready. Mainstream history check. Many medieval European communities placed great importance on lineage and ancestry, especially during the 10th to 14th centuries, where memory and identity were core to land inheritance, trade legitimacy, and religious rites. Here's the quirky twist. Some heretical sects were rumored to conduct rituals in which participants intentionally forgot their birth names, believing this freed them from earthly sin. Some even claimed that uttering a false name with conviction could confuse the spirits that tracked a person's soul. And here's where scholarly debate still festers: were these rituals metaphorical, just a symbolic form of religious humility, or did these sects genuinely believe that lying about one's name rewrote reality? The alchemist Durian, if only for tonight, wakes under stars that don't blink. He touches his temple. Something is missing. He doesn't miss it. By the time the sun peeks over the frost-kissed hills, the road has changed. It's no longer the dirt path he followed the day before, but a thin ribbon of chalky stone, winding and sharp like something carved out of bone. Trees lean away from it, not in fear, but in reverence, as if they remember something he does not. The air is heavier now, still, but not silent. It hums faintly, like a song forgotten mid-verse. He follows it because there's nothing else to do. Because the bread is gone, the lie is spoken, and the scroll in his robe, still warm, vibrates every time he steps closer to whatever's next. A fork in the road, no signs, just a wooden post nailed with one thing, a small mirror cracked diagonally. He catches his reflection and stumbles. His face is wrong. It's his, yes, but not quite. The scar above the eyebrow wasn't there yesterday. His eyes are the same shade of ash grey, but the corners pull differently now, as if holding back a secret even he can't eavesdrop on. He touches his cheek and feels heat beneath his fingertips. Not fever, change. Behind him, the wind shifts, not forward, sideways. Then from the corner of his eye, she appears, a woman with no shadow, wrapped in robes of cloud silk and feathers. Her eyes are sealed shut with golden thread. You seek the door, she says. Her voice echoes with the hush of monasteries, of vaulted ceilings long abandoned. He nods, unable to lie. Not now, not to her. Then you must forget something more precious than your name. I already have. No, she says gently. You've only lied once. That's like placing a mask on your memory. The face is still underneath. She steps aside and gestures toward a dense patch of fog winding like smoke around the trees. Through there, she says, you'll find the fog well. She disappears before he can ask her name. No footprints, no scent, not even a sigh of farewell. And so he walks into the fog. The fog well is not a well, not anymore. It was once, centuries ago. Historians agree on that much. A stone basin in the center of a grove, used by a local sect to perform rites of forgetting. The Order of the Null Star, some called it. They believed memory was a cage, and forgetting was a sacred fire. But whether this place was ever real is hotly debated. Some say it existed only an allegory, symbolic of the void between this life and the next. Others claim it moved, that the well appears only to those who are truly willing to vanish. The alchemist arrives at a clearing, where the mist thickens into presence. You don't see the fog well so much as feel it, like standing on the edge of a thought just before it forms. A stone ring, barely taller than his knees, sits at the center, moss-covered, cracked, but inside, liquid glass. He peers in. There is no reflection, no face, just a shimmer that makes the air feel brittle. A voice, not from behind but from within, asks, "What will you give up to remember how to forget?" He knows the answer instantly. My mother's voice. There's no ceremony, no ritual, just the silent slipping of a thread in his mind. The voice is gone. The comfort of lullabies, the laugh that wrapped around his childhood, the soft scoldings in the morning light. It's all ash now, gone before he could say thank you. The fog deepens. Something ancient has accepted the offering. From the mist a shape emerges. A woman, again, but not the one from before. This one wears iron keys on her belt, and her hair is braided with names etched on parchment. "You've lost something permanent," she says. "Good. Now you're ready for the map." He doesn't speak. He wouldn't know what to say. She unrolls a skin-thin sheet of leather, translucent, etched with shifting lines that move when you blink. This map doesn't show roads, she explains. It shows what forgetting feels like. He squints at it. It's not a place, it's an experience, a spiral of storms, a field of chalk bones, a door, always a door. You'll know you're close when the compass breaks again, she says. I lost it, she smiles. It found you again already, and sure enough, he feels a tug in his pocket. The compass, the one that spins when he lies, has returned. The needle twitches. He doesn't remember picking it up. But then, that's the point, isn't it? The woman vanishes like dew off a blade. A side note from your bedtime historian. In the 12th century, fog was often viewed in folklore as a veil between worlds. Travelers feared fog, not for what it hid, but what it revealed. Some medieval tales describe people walking into mist and returning decades later, or never. Now for the weirder bit, there's an obscure alchemical manuscript, the Nihilo Manus, that refers to fog wells as the breath of the world, where the spirit loosens its grip on history. The text is incomplete. Some pages appear chewed. No one knows why, and scholars, still arguing. Did these rituals symbolize the release of trauma, or were they desperate bids to transcend the self entirely? Back in the clearing, the alchemist folds the knot map. The leather doesn't fold properly, so it buzzes faintly in his robes. He walks deeper into the trees. Each step lighter, each thought dimmer. Above, clouds gather, but not the rainy kind, the remembering kind. And the wind once again shifts sideways. Night falls with a hush so complete, it feels curated. Even the owls are silent, as if watching with held breath. The alchemist walks until his legs forget to ache, until walking is no longer movement, but simply being. The leather knot map pulses softly in his pocket like a second heart, and the compass, well, it's given up completely. The needle now loops in lazy spirals, like it's bored or drunk or both. He finds a crooked milestone along the path. No text, just a carved symbol, a bowl tipping over, liquid spilling upward. Beside it, a stone bench wrapped in ivy, its seat worn smooth by centuries of people too tired to keep remembering. He sits, not because he needs to rest, but because something tells him this is a place of transition, a place where lies shed their skin and truths crawl out, blinking. A rustle, not leaves, words. A girl appears, maybe 10 years old, barefoot, dragging a bundle of herbs behind her. She glances at him and grins. You look like you're forgetting something, she says. He opens his mouth, unsure what will come out. She plops beside him. Everyone forgets something eventually. If they don't, they turn into stone. He blinks, not metaphorically, she adds. Real stone, like the ones on the hill, the ones with names. She points behind them. He turns. There they are, 12 stones arranged in a crescent, not just rocks, statues, human-shaped, hunched, some clasping scrolls, others reaching, each face contorted in the middle of a sentence. They remembered too hard, she whispers. Got stuck. What are they? They're warnings. That's why I'm here. I help people forget. You want some tea? She unrolls her bundle of herbs, revealing vials, dried mushrooms, small stone jars sealed with wax. She brews over a flame that wasn't there a moment ago. This blend, she says, stirring, is called First Winter's Breath. Smells like the moment you realize you've lost your gloves. Tastes like the inside of your own mouth when you can't find the right word. She hands him a cup. He drinks. It's cold. Not just temperature, memory cold. Like touching the inside of a cave wall you didn't know you carved. A vision uncoils behind his eyes. A house by the sea. Not stone, not wood, coral. A woman dances on the sand. A bell chimes, not from a tower, but from the mouth of a sleeping whale just off the coast. He feels joy and fear braided together. Then it snaps. He exhales sharply. The girl nods. See, better. What did I forget? She shrugs. Don't know, doesn't matter. That's the point. The compass rattles. The knot map emits a soft glow like phosphorescence on ocean rocks. You're ready now, she says. Next part's tricky. She wraps up her herbs and hops down from the bench. You'll need a name to lose again, so pick one, just for tonight. Doesn't have to be true. Ulrich, he says. Nice. I'll remember it for you. She vanishes into the trees. He follows the glowing veins of the knot map through the forest. Eventually, the trees part to reveal a shallow hollow lit by flickering lanterns. Lanterns that have no fuel, no wicks, just light. Soft, buttery, quiet. At the center is a figure, a man wrapped in robes stitched from pages. Literal pages, texts, letters, maybe contracts. They rustle when he moves. I am the scribe, the figure says. The one who remembers what others choose to lose. What is this place? The abbey of bound tongues. The air shifts. What once seemed like a forest floor becomes tiled stone beneath his feet. Cracked, uneven, lined with symbols that ache to be read but refuse to be understood. Columns rise into shadow. Walls built of shelved bones. The scribe continues. This place was once a monastery. We wrote down what others dared not forget. Names, shames, forbidden knowledge. When we ran out of space on parchment, we used ourselves. He gestures to the robes. The alchemist, Ulrich, for now, steps closer. Do you want to forget your language? The scribe asks. What happens if I do? You stop shaping the world. Words are hammers, chisels, keys. Without them, you are wind without direction. And if I refuse, you won't pass the next gate. The temple will not know you. He hesitates. The scribe offers a book with no title. Read this aloud, he instructs. Ulrich opens it. The letters squirm like spiders. Still, he speaks. The words come out as shapes. Sounds he doesn't know he knows. With every syllable, something slips. He finishes and forgets how to form a question. His tongue is now a passenger. Thoughts bubble, but never surface. Good, says the scribe. Now follow the bell. A faint tolling begins, not external, but internal. A sound in his bones. He leaves the abbey behind. Tonight's historical tidbit. Medieval scribes often took vows of silence, especially in monastic orders. But here's the twist. Some orders also maintained secret codes, hand signs, and pictorial glyphs to preserve forbidden or dangerous knowledge that was too volatile to write openly. Fringe footnote: there are apocryphal texts that describe script robes, garments worn by record keepers who believed clothing imbued with sacred texts could act as protective wards or spiritual chains. And yes, scholars still bicker over whether these were symbolic practices, or whether some poor monk actually stitched psalms into his underwear. The alchemist walks now not through a forest or abbey, but something between. Language has left him. Thought is quieter. He is lighter, somehow, and the map glows brighter. The door is closer. The bell tolls once more. Dull, distant, inviting. The bell fades, but its echo remains, like a lingering scent or a forgotten melody, clinging to the folds of silence. The alchemist, still Ulrich for reasons he can no longer quite recall, walks in stillness. Even the compass has gone quiet. No spinning, no twitching, just a calm, eerie stillness that seems to whisper, "You've passed another test." Ahead, the land flattens into a stone plain. Scattered grasses poke through the cracks, like reluctant memories. The air here feels thinner, less oxygen, more dream. It's not hard to breathe, just hard to believe. He spots something glinting ahead, a compass nailed to a crooked signpost. But this isn't his compass. This one is larger, embedded in a twisted oak trunk growing sideways from the stone. The needle doesn't point north. It doesn't spin. It trembles, pulses, as if confused by his presence. A plaque beneath it reads, "Lies spin," but forgetting steadies the hand. A whisper brushes his ear. "It'll work if you deserve it." He turns. No one, just the wind, shaped like words. He moves onward and soon comes upon a ring of blackened stones. In the center, a fire pit still smolders, despite no sign of life nearby. A pot dangles from a rusted hook, bubbling with something dark and thick as old blood. Someone, or something, has been here recently. He peers inside the pot. The scent is oddly familiar. Charcoal and fennel, salt and memory. Outside the fire, a stack of yellowed papers. Diagrams, notes, Instructions scrawled in 3 different hands. One is oddly neat, mechanical. The second is looping and joyful. The third, jittery, desperate, as if written by someone trying not to remember what they already know. One page shows a drawing, a man pouring liquid from a beaker into a compass, which then begins to glow. He follows the steps. From the satchel at his side, he doesn't remember packing it. He retrieves a flask of clear, viscous fluid. It smells like rain on old brass. He pours a single drop into the center of his broken compass. It shudders once, then the needle points. Not north, not to the path, but inward. He looks up. The world tilts. Before him now, a structure emerges, not built but revealed by his shift in perception. A shrine, a house, no, a workshop, half collapsed, moss-covered, but unmistakably alchemical. The scent of burnt copper hangs in the air. Instruments lie scattered on stone tables. Alembics, retorts, tongs, shattered vials of iridescent ash. A small plaque above the door reads, "The house that remembers you." He steps inside. This place knows him. Walls whisper as he walks past. A stool adjusts itself to his height. A rusted cauldron perks like a pet. And there in the corner, a mirror cracked in 3 places, each crack reflecting a different face. One is a boy, one is old, one is someone else entirely. He walks past the mirror and finds a shelf of labeled jars, but the labels are cryptic. Laughter at your own expense, grudges that outlived their purpose, memory of a kiss that never happened. He touches one, the jar warms, another memory bleeds out, this time not his own. A girl with a scar on her chin, leaning in to whisper something she doesn't yet regret. And then, nothing. The workshop feeds on his forgetting, and he lets it. At the center of the room, a workbench, upon it, a brass compass, almost identical to his own, but missing its needle. Beside it, a note. To orient yourself toward the door, one must become unmoored. He looks at his own compass again. The needle is twitching now, weak, erratic, like a heartbeat on its last loop. The scroll in his robe, still there, warms, then begins to vibrate. He unrolls it. The original message has changed. Now it reads, "When you no longer fear losing yourself, the door will find you." He doesn't panic. That's long gone. Panic belongs to people who know who they are. Instead, he walks to the far end of the room where an archway waits, one that wasn't there when he entered. It hums softly. The stones glow faintly with glyphs that rearrange themselves each time he looks directly at them. As he steps through, his name Alric, or whatever he thought it was, falls off him like old bark. He doesn't notice. Here's your historical anchor. Alchemy, in its late medieval form, wasn't just about turning metals into gold. It was about transformation of the self. The philosopher's stone, some believed, could also unlock immortality, not of the body, but of awareness. Fringe detail. There are medieval records, though rare, of memory brewers, practitioners who crafted tinctures designed not to enhance memory, but to erase it selectively. One surviving recipe from 1481 uses, believe it or not, ink mixed with powdered coral and the vapor of a dead bee. Historians, still uncertain. Did these brewers really hope to wipe trauma, or were they experimenting with identity as part of mystic rebirth? The debates are ongoing and deeply weird. The alchemist steps into a circular chamber, clearly older than the workshop, older than the forest. Symbols spiral inward on the floor, some alchemical, others unfamiliar, even to him. Walls pulse like breathing sandstone. In the center, a plinth. Upon it, a cracked compass. Its needle points up, not to the sky, to the self. He places his compass beside it. Both snap in half, and the scroll disintegrates in his hands. He smiles not because he understands, but because something inside him does. The dust from the disintegrated scroll settles in soft spirals across the floor, catching faint strands of light that have no visible source. The plinth, now holding the cracked compass halves like a broken yoke, begins to sink, inch by inch, into the floor with the sound of stone exhaling. The alchemist, nameless again, if he ever truly wasn't, steps back, hands slack by his side. The walls shudder once. Then silence. And then, chanting, faint, off-key, sung not with voices but with breath. It comes from below. He follows. A staircase descends where the plinth once stood, circular, carved straight into the earth. Moss clings to each step like memories refusing to let go. He descends. The air thickens. The silence gains texture. At the bottom, a narrow corridor glows faintly green from lichen growing in arrow shapes along the walls. It smells like old parchment and pine resin. This place, it's known him before. That's the first thing he's remembered without effort. And that's when he realizes memory is still in him. It's just rearranged. The corridor opens into a dome-shaped chamber, the Abbey of Bound Tongues, or what remains of it. Columns have collapsed inward, forming twisted arches of petrified wood and fossilized books. The ceiling is too high to see. In the center, a dry fountain with dozens of carved faces, each mid-scream, or maybe mid-song. A plaque reads, "Their tongues were tied not in silence, but in sound too pure for this world." He walks slowly, careful not to step on the bones scattered like seeds. Skulls smile with cracked teeth, some etched with sigils. One clutches a tiny scroll in its jaw. He takes it gently, expecting gibberish. Instead, he reads, "Speak no name, and none shall find you. Speak not truth, and the door shall appear." His voice escapes before he thinks to stop it. "I understand," and instantly his ears ring with the hiss of 100 pages burning. From the shadows, a monk-shaped figure stepped forward, not robed in fabric, but in silence itself. The absence of sound clings to him like oil. "You've forgotten language," the figure says, though its mouth doesn't move. "You've lost your name. You've spilled the compass of self. You're ready for the next question." The alchemist steadies his breath. "What are you willing to forget that never belonged to you?" He hesitates. This is harder. He thinks. Images flicker. A tower collapsing. A blue-eyed woman screaming across a battlefield. A child, not his, hiding under floorboards with a candle stub. These are not his memories, but they're in him. "I'll give up the pain that wasn't mine," he says. The monk nods, and then places 2 fingers against his forehead. A surge, like lightning made of velvet. His knees buckle, and when he stands again, the images are gone. His thoughts are quiet, not empty, still. The monk gestures to a narrow doorway that wasn't there before. Beyond it, a tunnel lined with mirrors, each reflecting not the present, but possible selves. One shows him dressed as a nobleman, crown tilted on his head, bored and cruel. Another, an old beggar, blind, feeding pigeons who whisper his name. One, cloaked in velvet, laughing at a hanging. And then, one that startles him. Just a boy, alone, with a jar of beetles and a book too heavy for his lap, smiling. He stops. That smile is real. Historical interlude. Medieval mirror symbolism was layered and intense. Mirrors were said to reflect not just appearance but soul state. Some believed that mirrors could trap the soul, explaining why they were covered during mourning periods. Quirky tidbit. In 13th century Bohemia, monks used polished obsidian to create self-chambers, where initiates were forced to confront distorted reflections until they forgot which was real. And historians still squabble over this gem. Were these practices forms of spiritual introspection, or early psychological conditioning bordering on trauma? Either way, the alchemist walks through the mirrored tunnel, avoiding eye contact with every version of himself, until the tunnel ends in light. A door, but not the door. This one is metal, etched with runes. It breathes softly in and out, as if dreaming. He places a hand on it. The surface is cool, then warm, then alive. A voice familiar, from nowhere, asks, "Do you remember why you came?" He doesn't, and that, apparently, is the right answer. The door swings inward, and golden mist pours from the seam. He steps through. The moment he enters, he's hit by sensation, not memory, just pure awareness. He smells salt, not sea salt, tears. He hears the sigh of time, not a clock, but something older, something that ticks with each moment of letting go. He sees nothing, then everything. He's in a field of white marble tablets, thousands of them, each with a single word carved on its face. Some are names, some are lies, Some are just the word, maybe. And that's when he realizes, this is where names go, when they're forgotten. A mausoleum of self. He wanders between the tablets, reading words that stir faint, almost memories. Teller, ashen, Briony, regret, hope, wretch, yours. He finds one with a smear of ash on it. It simply says, Alchemist, and nothing else. No date, no flourish. He kneels beside it. A single tear slips down his cheek. He doesn't know if it's grief or relief. Somewhere behind him, a wind begins to howl, not from outside, but from within the temple. The wind forms a door-shaped gap in the world. It glows. It waits. He does not rise right away. The tablet that reads Alchemist still radiates a low, humming warmth, like a candle burned all the way down but not yet cold. He traces the single word with a finger. The stone feels soft, somehow not physically, but in meaning, like the name might flake away any moment, erasing itself. The wind continues to shape the light behind him into a doorway, but it doesn't beckon. It waits, patient, respectful, a door that has no need to rush anyone who's already let go of time. The alchemist, yes, let's keep calling him that, even if he no longer would, finally stands and turns, and he gasps. Not because the door is beautiful, though it is, made of light woven into structure, trembling like spider silk in the morning, but because it is familiar. He has stood here before, or someone who once was him. He steps closer. For every inch he moves, a memory flickers, not a full memory, but sensations, the taste of blackberries, the ache of a blade sharpened too often, the smell of someone he once loved, the disappointment of not being able to save something, or someone. These aren't thoughts, they're textures. The door hums as he approaches. A voice neither male nor female, neither young nor old, speaks not into his ears, but into his bones. You have come far enough. He nods. Slowly, you have given much. He places a hand over his chest. The heartbeat is still there, but it no longer sounds like his. And now, before the door opens, one final forgetting. He opens his mouth to ask, what is left, but nothing comes out. Because he already knows. His body tenses. The final piece. Not a name, not a memory, not a falsehood, but the idea that he ever had a story. At the far corner of the marble field, a small pedestal rises, no larger than a child's desk. Upon it, a cube of glass. Inside the cube, a slip of parchment. It reads, "The idea of yourself must be left behind." He walks to it, places his hands on the glass. It melts like sugar. The parchment lifts on its own, dissolves into gold dust, and flows into his hands. Not hot, not cold, just gone. The door breathes again, and this time it opens. The light doesn't blind, it softens. He steps through, and for a brief second, he thinks he's still in the field of names. But the marble is gone, the stone is gone, even his feet gone. He floats, or maybe simply exists, in a space that hums with 1,000 quiet thoughts. Thoughts not of identity, but of possibility. A voice, his voice. The doors, says, "You are now allowed." And from the mist, shapes begin to form. Welcome to the forest of remembering cats. Yes, you heard that right. The trees twist high into the clouds, their bark soft and dark, smelling faintly of sage and something vaguely metallic, like a fresh key. Lanterns hang from the branches, flickering without flame. The ground is thick with moss, and it purrs when stepped on. From between the roots, dozens, no, hundreds of cats emerge. Black cats, tortoiseshells, blue-eyed Siamese, some with 2 tails, one with no face, all silent, all watching. He steps forward. They follow, but not like pets, like witnesses. The path curls like smoke, and then the cats begin to speak, not aloud, but in layered thoughts that overlap and nest in each other, like dreams inside dreams. He came through. He shed the last thing. He smells like no one now. He's ready. One cat leap onto a twisted log, its fur ink dark with glimmering specks like stars. It thinks directly into his heart. You are the first in 317 years. The alchemist tilts his head. The cat's tail curls. This forest remembers what you've chosen to forget. and in doing so it confirms you, not who you were, but what you may become. It leaps down, purrs once, and the entire feline congregation bows, just slightly. Pause for a cat fact, shall we? In many medieval cultures, black cats were viewed with suspicion, witches, familiars, symbols of ill omen. But in some rare texts, particularly among certain Irish and Norse traditions, cats were seen as guides to the other world, guardians of soul travel, especially during rituals of forgetting or dreamwalking. Now here's the fringe theory. There exists a 14th century Italian fragment describing a forest where cats remember names no longer spoken and whisper them to the stars. Scholars mostly dismiss it as allegory, but wouldn't you like to believe? Historians, of course, still argue, were cats truly spiritual guides in folklore, or just convenient scapegoats during plague panics and paranoid witch hunts? Either way, this forest purrs with purpose. The alchemist, though truly he is now no more than a vessel for what comes next, follows the cat path as it twists gently into fog. Each step is weightless. The path itself seems to bend around him, not leading but accompanying, not forcing but inviting. He passes a tree etched with tiny gold symbols. A cat rubs against it. The bark rearranges itself. A phrase appears, "You are no longer a story told in past tense." He reaches a clearing. At its center, another door. But this one is not glowing, not sealed, just waiting. The cats sit around it in a perfect circle. They meow once, and then all fade into starlight. He breathes in, reaches forward, places a hand on the wood. It's warm and familiar, like home. The door before him is carved from a type of wood he can't name. It smells like rain on parchment. Its surface is etched with swirling sigils, but not the dramatic kind, the sort of subtle patterns that only appear when you stop trying to see them, like bruises under the skin of memory. It doesn't open with a creak. It simply isn't closed anymore. He steps through. The world on the other side is not dark, but muted. It's as though someone turned down the volume on reality. The colors are soft, the air warm and thick, and even his thoughts sound muffled inside his skull. He's in a corridor, stone walls on either side, painted with frescoes. At first glance, they're cracked and faded, but when he walks slowly, when he breathes with intention, the paintings move. Each fresco is a scene. Each scene is a version of him. One shows him as a royal advisor, whispering to a cruel king with poisoned wine in his sleeve. Another as a village healer, beloved, eventually burned for curing someone too quickly. A third, this one's harder to look at, shows him sitting quietly in a house made of glass, alone, smiling. But the smile doesn't reach the eyes, and the glass is cracking. As he walks, more frescoes appear, not static, moving, evolving. One version of him is laughing with a group of children, another is begging at a riverbank, other stares down at blood-covered hands. His, someone else's. Each memory pulses faintly, not from the past, from the paths not taken, and the corridor narrows with every step. He reaches the final fresco. It's blank. And that's when he understands this one is waiting, not for paint, for him. A low hum begins, as if the corridor itself is clearing its throat. A door emerges in the wall, not in front of him, but to the side. He didn't notice it before, didn't need to. The door is steel, not rusted, not polished, just neutral, almost bored. A placard reads, "Do not enter unless you are ready to be unmade." He chuckles, or thinks he does. Hard to say, without a mouth. He pushes the door open. Inside is a kitchen, stone counters, a wood stove, the smell of broth, a chipped bowl, half filled with something steamy and green. Someone is stirring the pot. They turn. It's him, or rather, it was, the same face, but younger, eyes sharper, mouth not yet tired, the same robes but cleaner, the same hands, but less worn. About time. The younger version says, smiling, "I suppose it is. You've done the forgetting." "Yes. But do you remember the last thing?" He hesitates. "No." The younger self nods approvingly. "Then you're ready to cook." The alchemist is handed the ladle. His younger self vanishes, like a memory you realize never happened. He begins to stir. The broth thickens. He doesn't know what's in it, but the smell is comforting. He stirs clockwise, then counter. The potion simmers. then whispers, "Alchemy fact breaks. Did you know in the 15th century, alchemists often described memory in culinary terms? Recipes, ingredients, simmering, distilling. It wasn't all metal and magic. Some believed the mind itself was a pot in which ideas were brewed, strained, and clarified. One obscure alchemical text, The Stew of Thought, describes a ritual broth said to cleanse the soul of borrowed identities. The ingredients: rainwater from a moonless night, salt from a weeping woman, and a single thread from the hem of a forgotten priest's robe. Historians still argue whether this was metaphorical or someone's idea of actual dinner. One thing's for sure, it was never about the soup. As the alchemist stirs, the colors around him shift. The kitchen blurs, the ladle grows lighter, the air is suddenly cold. He's no longer stirring. He's standing in a circle of salt on a stone floor. The kitchen is gone. In its place, an amphitheater of shadow. Dozens of figures surround him, hooded, silent, but their silence isn't oppressive, it's expectant. In the center of the circle, an object rises. It's a recipe, but not written in words, etched in experiences. A lock of hair, a broken tooth, a single candle stub, the shard of a name that once meant safe, a feather inked with regret. He steps forward and places his hand on it. It dissolves into smoke, and the smoke enters him. He stumbles, feels lighter. Something cracks, not in his bones, but in his idea of being, like a shelf breaking under the weight of unneeded books. He doesn't fall, he floats, then lands softly on a moss floor, the amphitheater gone. Now he's in a glade under a night sky, where the stars blink slowly, as if unsure whether they should stay. A voice, faint but familiar, whispers, "You are almost at the door," and then, "But first, the recipe must be forgotten." He feels for it in his mind. The ingredients, the process, the meaning, gone, gone, gone. A perfect erasure. All that's left is the sense that he once knew something, and it was beautiful, but not his, and now it is no one's. He smiles. This is the price, and the reward. He sits by the edge of the glade and listens to the wind weave itself into lullabies that don't need words. The trees lean in to hear him breathe, and the stars flicker in applause. The glade is so quiet it hums, the kind of quiet that wraps around you like a woolen blanket, still warm from someone else. The stars above move almost imperceptibly, like slow dancers in a room that no longer needs music. He lies there for a while, whoever he is now, staring up, not trying to think, not trying to name, just breathing. Eventually, a light fog creeps along the moss, swirling around his ankles when he stands. The ground is soft underfoot, and he realizes he is barefoot now. When had he removed his boots? Had he ever worn any? He walks, not toward anything in particular. The path appears just ahead of his steps, curling softly, obediently, as if the world is no longer made of stone and tree and boundary, but of will, of suggestion. The air smells of crushed mint and old libraries, and something faintly metallic, like memory. The path leads him to a clearing. In the center stands a table, weathered and low, surrounded by 7 stone stools. On each stool sits a figure, cloaked, still, neither warm nor cold. They do not turn to him, they do not blink. Their faces, if they have them, are concealed in shadow. Yet somehow, their attention is unmistakably upon him. He approaches the 8th stool, empty. As soon as he sits, the one directly across from him speaks, though the sound is not heard so much as registered, like heat or hunger. "You've made the candle." The alchemist nods, though he cannot recall the act of making it. Yet in his pocket, something waxy and smooth is there. He pulls it out, a small pale candle. Its wick is untouched. It weeps slightly, beads of salt forming on its sides, weeping like stone in humidity. Another figure speaks. "You must burn it in the mirror room. Only there will you see what you were before." A third adds, "But do not look too long. The mirror remembers what you've tried to lose." They all rise as one, and vanish like steam. The table remains, but the world around it has changed. The clearing is now enclosed by marble walls without doors. The sky is gone, The air is still. In front of him stands a mirror as tall as a tree trunk, its surface dark and rippling like oil. He lights the candle. It doesn't flare, it sighs. The flame is blue and low, and the moment it ignites, the room is flooded with scent, salt and smoke and rosemary. The mirror begins to shimmer. Shapes form. The first thing he sees is a child, pale, eyes too large for his face, sitting cross-legged with a pile of broken glass and herbs. He is trying to build something, failing, starting over, again and again. Then a man, middle-aged, scowling into a bubbling cauldron. Behind him, shelves of bones and vials, and something wriggling in a jar that shouldn't exist. Then, an old man, curled like a question mark, laughing at nothing as flames consume his notes. He watches. Each version flickers like frames of film, not memories, potentials, lives that could have been, might still be, or perhaps never were. He sees lovers, enemies, teachers, students, all played by himself, all roles he cannot remember rehearsing. And then, the final image, a door carved into a mountainside, glowing faintly, not with light, but with possibility. The candle sputters. The mirror darkens. He exhales, then realizes he had been holding his breath. The mirror ripples once more, and a whisper rises from it, almost drowned in the sound of the wax dripping to the floor. Do you still think you are someone? He doesn't answer, because he no longer knows, and the mirror accepts this. The wall behind it folds open, revealing a passage of gently pulsing stone. The passage curves downward, spiraling like a shell, narrowing with each step. He follows, the candle now no more than a stub clutched loosely in his palm. With each turn of the spiral, another sensation slips away, first hunger, then shame, then something else, harder to name, ambition, memory, the urge to be known. Eventually, he reaches the end of the spiral. A small platform overlooks a cavern filled with black water. In the center of the water floats a single boat, made entirely of woven reeds, its shape impossibly delicate. He steps into it. The boat moves without instruction. No oars, no sail, it simply understands. The ride is smooth, silent, slow. The water beneath glows faintly with pulses, like a heartbeat or a lullaby for the forgotten. Halfway across, he feels a shift in himself. Not pain, not fear, just absence. He tries to recall the faces in the mirror, but they're gone. He tries to remember his purpose, gone. He looks at his hands, still there, but the meaning of them, gone. Tonight's lawbreak, in the late medieval period, mirrors were thought to possess memory, capable of absorbing the essence of those who gazed into them too long. Some alchemists believed mirrors could be made to weep out the secrets they had seen, hence the recurring image of weeping glass in arcane texts. An unusual fringe belief from 1430s, Persia proposed that salt could draw truth from surfaces. When rubbed across mirrors, some claimed it caused forgotten truths to rise like mist. An early experiment in psychological recovery or alchemical daydreaming. Modern scholars remain divided, though many now believe these weeping rituals were part of larger symbolic death and rebirth ceremonies in proto-mystic traditions. The boat stops. There is no dock, just shore, soft white sand that glows faintly underfoot. The alchemist, if we still call him that, steps out. The water does not ripple. He walks up a slope, past stone obelisks, half buried in dune. No names, just the impression of names, like erased chalk. At the top of the slope is a tree, dead or sleeping. Wrapped around its trunk is a doorframe, just the frame. No wall, no hinges, no door, yet the space between the frames shimmers. It calls to him, and finally he steps through. The shimmer of the doorframe folds around him like liquid silk. There is no threshold, no step, no sensation of crossing, only a subtle shift in density, like the air thickens just long enough to let you know something's changed. He blinks, or he thinks he does. But maybe there are no eyelids here, no eyes, just awareness, shaped momentarily like a man. The world beyond the doorframe is neither light nor dark. It's more like a canvas waiting for paint, or a dream waiting for permission. Colors begin to emerge, but not in forms, in feelings, a blue like regret, a gold like almost love, a red like a promise never made but still broken. He walks through this world that isn't, following a trail that forms beneath his feet with each step. The path sparkles faintly, not with light, but with recognition, like something beneath it says, yes, this is right. And then he reaches the merchant of lost things. A tall figure draped in cloth that ripples without breeze. His face is obscured but not hidden, it's simply unfinished. A suggestion of features, like the memory of someone you almost knew in childhood but only saw once. The merchant stands beside a stall made of bone and brass. Objects hang in slow suspension around him, a broken hourglass filled with sand that flows upward, a feather made of stone, a child's tooth with writing etched along the root. "Ah," says the merchant, his voice the exact tone of a book closing. "You've brought something valuable." The alchemist doesn't speak. "You carry unspoken questions, and a memory that doesn't belong to you." Still, he says nothing. The merchant gestures, and from the air, an object descends, a glass vial filled with smoke the color of mourning doves. Inside, tiny shapes swirl, faces maybe. Echoes. "This," says the merchant, "is unbeing." It doesn't erase. It replaces. The alchemist reaches for it. "Ah," the merchant warns, "nothing is free. You must give me something, a memory you do not know you have." A pause, not for drama, for balance. The alchemist nods, and instantly, a tug in his chest. Subtle, like a page being turned too quickly. Something leaves him. A woman on a bridge, her hand in his, her name gone, her voice never existed. But the ache remains, like a bell that keeps ringing even after it's cracked. The vial is warm in his palm. "Drink it," says the merchant. "Then go. You're already disappearing." He uncorks it. The smoke doesn't rise. It sinks into his hand, into his chest, into nothing, and everything inside him shifts. He blinks again. This time, he's somewhere else. Rain is falling, but not water. Words, tiny, fragmented syllables, not speech, just language. Each drop that lands on him tastes like something different. He opens his mouth and catches one. The flavor is thick, sour, like an apology said too late. Another hits his cheek. It tastes like lullabies. He stumbles through the storm, and with each drop that touches him, he forgets a word. Not just the meaning, the shape of it. First before, then if, then me. The storm intensifies. Language slows off him like skin. He tries to call out, but nothing comes. Not even silence. Just absence. Then he finds a small wooden shelter. 3 walls, a roof woven from reeds. Carved into the inside wall is a phrase: "To lose language is to lose time. To lose time is to find the door." He stands there, breathing the language rain, until he doesn't recognize the sound of his own thoughts. Eventually, the storm passes, not because it ends, because he is no longer catching it. He's no longer a vessel it can fill. Here's a curious historical detail. Some 14th century mystics believed that forgetting language was a sacred act. A few heretical groups practiced lingual fasting, in which followers would live without speech, writing, or reading for months, believing this purified the soul and prepared it for divine encounter. A stranger fringe theory from 1312 posits that angels don't speak in heaven, they resonate, and that to enter heaven, one must first forget human language entirely. There's even an obscure scroll from Prague that reads, "The more you forget how to speak, the more the door hears you." Scholars still argue, were these metaphors for humility and piety, or were these mystics truly trying to disassemble identity word by word? The alchemist has no words left to ask. He continues walking. Eventually he comes to a circular plaza, a ruined town square. The stones underfoot are cracked, weeds growing from between them. In the center, a banquet table. Long, empty plates, spilled goblets. Dust covers everything, but the seats, occupied. Skeletons sit around the table in frozen poses, one with a spoon lifted mid-bite, another raising a goblet. One leans forward as if whispering to the next. He steps closer and sees the ring on the hand of the skeleton at the far end. His ring. He kneels, looks at the bones, the face, the robe. Familiar, not from memory, but from shape. This was him, or one version. He touches the ring, and a whisper escapes the skeleton's jaw. You took too long, he recoils, but the whisper continues. We waited, we starved, we forgot everything, but you remembered just enough. The table groans, dust begins to swirl. One by one the skeletons crumble, not into bone, into ash shaped like names. He watches as the dust rises into the sky, spelling words he no longer recognizes. And then, nothing. The table is empty, the ring is gone, and he is alone again. The plaza fades, and the door, it is closer. He wakes, if it can be called waking, on a slope of ash. It clings to him, soft and weightless, and shifts underfoot with every step. The sky above is colorless, a smooth stretch of pale light without sun, moon, or source. No shadows fall here, even he casts none. At the base of the slope stands a well, ancient, rimmed in green lichen, its stones cracked and leaning. A rope dangles from the top, frayed, ending in nothing. A voice, not his own, whispers from deep within the well, not in any language he recognizes, just feeling, a pull, an invitation. He peers over the edge. There is no water, no bottom, either, just a darkness that swirls faintly, like oil over ink. And from that blackness, a single shape rises slowly, a mask, porcelain white, smooth, blank, except for a delicate crack running from temple to jaw. A voice, internal, like breath echoing inside bones, speaks. Speak your name, any name, then let it fall. He understands instantly. He closes his eyes. He chooses one, not the real one, not anymore, but one that meant something once. He says it aloud. His voice is hoarse, rarely used. The name echoes into the well, and the mask drops, vanishing into the void. He waits. Nothing happens, which is the only confirmation he needs. This well, it turns out, is not a well at all. It's a threshold. He steps away, and the air around him thickens. The ash beneath his feet shifts into stone. A path rises from it, spiraling outward, and from the spiral walls bloom, low at first, then taller with every step. He walks into a city made of stone and silence. The buildings are reversed, doors that open inward into walls, windows that reflect only the inside of your eyes. The streets slope upward, though he feels like he's descending. The smell in the air is old parchment, burnt rosemary, and soap. A small boy runs past him, barefoot and laughing, then vanishes into a wall. He follows, finds only a blank stone surface. But when he touches it, the surface shimmers, it ripples, and then it shows him something. Not a vision, a possibility. He sees himself, hair longer, skin darker from sun, sitting in a library that doesn't exist, writing a book with no title, smiling. The wall dims, and the city changes around him. Welcome to the city that builds itself backwards. The buildings uncollapse. The rubble flies upward. Dust reforms into bricks, brick into shape, shape into memory. Windows seal themselves. Doors vanish into clean surfaces. He walks through its reformation, each step undoing more of what once was. Every wall shows a reflection, not of the present, not even of the past, but of moments that might have mattered. Here, a meal never eaten. There, a letter never sent, a kiss never stolen. The city is made not of architecture, but of potential. He turns a corner. A figure sits cross-legged on a plinth made of copper books. A thief, or so he assumes. The figure wears dozens of pouches, all stitched with names. Their face is obscured by goggles tinted violet. They beckon. You've come far, they say. He doesn't answer. You've come heavy, still silent. The thief pulls out a pouch. This one's yours, or was. It's heavy with second thoughts. They toss it to him. He catches it, and the moment it touches his skin, he feels a rush, regret, shame, hesitation, what-ifs, all braided into a single suffocating weight. The thief raises a brow. Want to keep it. He doesn't hesitate. He drops it. The pouch hits the stone and bursts. No sound, no dust, just absence. The thief grins, braver than most. They hand him something else. A feather, not from a bird, from a moment. He doesn't ask how he knows. He just knows. This'll help. The thief says, you'll need it when the librarian asks what you remember. Then they vanish, walking backward into a wall that unbuilds itself behind them. Modern historians love their metaphors, but here's a tangible medieval oddity in a series of alchemical texts recovered from a German monastery in 1479. There's mention of a city where time moves like ink in water, spiraling, staining, then vanishing. Some scholars claim it refers to Prague during political upheaval. Others say it describes the inner mind during transformation rites. And some fringe voices insist it was literal, a hidden city accessed only by initiates who had unburdened their memories of regret. One curious footnote: a sketch found in the margins of the text shows a feather suspended over a pouch stitched shut. Beneath it, a single word: decision. The alchemist continues walking. He reaches a gate. It's tall, iron, rusted. Words etched into the bars say, "Beyond this point, truth becomes optional." He pushes. The gate doesn't resist. It opens on silence. He's in a library now, but not one made for reading. The shelves curve in impossible spirals stacked with blank spines, books that breathe, scrolls that bleed slightly at the edges. A woman stands at a central desk, the librarian. She's ancient, not in appearance but in gravity. Her presence bends the air. She doesn't look up from her ink-stained hands. "Do you remember what you came for?" she asks. He shakes his head. "Good," she says. "Then you might still find it." She offers him a page, not bound, just a single sheet. He takes it. The page is blank, then not. It flickers, showing images, not quite memories, not quite dreams. A child's drawing, a battlefield, a door, then blank again. The librarian sighs. "You won't remember this page 5 minutes from now," she says, "but it will remember you." He nods. She places a finger on his forehead, and every word he once knew leaves. He turns to exit, but the library is gone. The gate behind him has vanished, and before him, another path. The feather from the thief glows in his hand. It points forward, to something flickering in the haze. He walks, each step lighter, each thought quieter. He no longer wonders who he was, only where the door is, and he knows. It's close. The path stretches forward like the idea of a line, more suggested than drawn, winding through fog that clings low and thick around the ankles. It curls in looping spirals that sometimes double back on themselves, as if testing his resolve. The feather in his hand still glows, but faintly now paler with every step, as though it's burning memory just to keep guiding him. He doesn't ask how it works. The question no longer matters. The world is quieter now, not silent, just still. In that way deserts are still before a storm. Even his thoughts seem to echo longer, fainter. When he remembers something, even briefly, a feeling, a gesture, a rhythm, it slips away like breath on glass, and then he hears it. Music. Not music, precisely. The suggestion of rhythm, a pulse, a repetition. He follows the sound. The fog parts, revealing a vast stone square, once a town centre perhaps, or a ceremonial space. In its centre stands a long banquet table, and seated around it, skeletons. They sit in various poses, some upright, some slouched. One collapsed with arms outstretched over its plate, as if in a final toast. Their garments are old, worn to tatters, some barely more than threads. But what captures him isn't their posture, or the table itself. It's that each place is perfectly set. Forks, knives, goblets, all untouched. A feast prepared, but never served. He steps closer. The stone beneath his feet shifts slightly, groaning, as if remembering a pain. The sound of his footsteps is swallowed too quickly. One skeleton turns its head. A gentle creak, a flicker of motion. He freezes. The skeleton's jaw opens. From within, a thin ribbon of air escapes, vibrating slightly. Not words, not breath, memory. He hears a woman's laugh, just once, soft, familiar. Another skeleton lifts its arm slightly. Its finger points, not at him, but toward the head of the table. There sits one who wears a different cloak. Deep crimson, tattered but still vibrant. The fabric twisted around bone, as if it remembers warmth. Upon its finger, a ring. His ring. He knows it. Not by memory, but by recognition in the marrow. He walks slowly to the head of the table, kneels, looks into the empty eye sockets, and the skull moves. A whisper rises, not from the jaw but from somewhere older. You were here once. He nods. Slowly. You made the toast. You led the feast. Then you forgot the reason. The alchemist doesn't speak. He reaches for the ring. As his fingers touch it, the memory blooms, not full, not clear, but overwhelming. A hall of people, all gathered in celebration. He younger, standing at the head of the table, raising a cup, promising something. Then a flash. Silence, dust, and forgetting. He takes the ring, places it on his finger. The table cracks. The skeletons turn to ash. One by one, their seats collapse into splinters of old time. And then, silence returns. But this time, it carries finality. There's a curious mention in an obscure 15th century Italian grimoire, Il Banchetto della Mente Perduta, or the Banquet of the Lost Mind. It describes a table where all attendees were said to offer their last remaining memory before passing into the second knowing. The table would remain set eternally, visited only by those who had not yet understood their own forgetting. Skeptics call it metaphor. Esoteric scholars suggest it was part of ritual memory erasure. An even stranger note appears in the marginalia. He who reclaims the ring reclaims the right to pass. Historians, naturally, argue about whether this was symbolic, spiritual, or just very strange Renaissance party etiquette. The alchemist stands now in an empty plaza. The table is gone. The ring glows faintly, and the path opens again, splitting into two. To the left, a tunnel of woven roots, gnarled and pulsing with faint amber light. To the right, an archway made of salt, crumbling slowly, scattering fine crystals into the wind. He chooses neither. Instead, he sits and waits. He doesn't know why, only that stillness feels correct now. After a time, seconds, years, a figure approaches. Clad in simple linen, face hidden by a hood, it walks barefoot across the stone. It carries nothing. It stops before him and speaks without words. You have remembered too much. The alchemist nods. The figure kneels. From beneath its robe, it removes a small pouch. It opens the pouch, revealing sand. Not ordinary sand, bone sand, soft white, with a shimmer like old coins. It pours the sand into the alchemist's palm. Instantly, the wind stops. The ring fades. His heartbeat slows. And then, a jolt of clarity. He gasps. The plaza vanishes. He is in darkness. It is not the darkness of night, or caves, or closed eyes. It is the darkness before choosing, before language, before self. And within this darkness, a door. It does not glow. It does not hum. It simply is. He walks toward it. Every step sheds something from him. Not memories, not feelings. Definitions. He becomes less this, more something. Not man, not alchemist, not pilgrim. Just almost. He reaches the door, places his hand against it. It feels like all the things he never had the courage to believe. He doesn't push, he just breathes. And the door begins to open, not with a sound, but with permission. The door opens like mist retreating from sunlight. No hinges, no creak, no resistance. It simply stops being closed. What lies beyond isn't a room or a path or a landscape. It's transition, a space between definitions, a boundary folded so many times it no longer separates anything. He steps through, and the act is less about movement and more about permission. The door accepts him, not because of who he is, but because of who he no longer insists on being. On the other side, gravity loses interest. He doesn't float, but nor does he fall. He just exists, held in place by will alone. Light surrounds him, pale, diffuse, shimmering like heat off old stone, and beneath it, something vast and waiting begins to stir. It is not a voice, not really, but he knows it speaks. Its words are shape, texture, vibration, the sense of cotton unraveling, the exact feeling of standing at the edge of something beautiful and terrible, just before you decide whether to look. You are not the first. He doesn't answer. But you are the first to forget correctly. Something in him wants to weep, not from pain, from rightness. The space begins to shift. Shapes form, slowly, flickering outlines of pillars, archways, trees with no bark and leaves that glow faintly with memory. A temple, maybe, or a dream pretending to be one. In the center of it all, a basin, not wide, not deep, just enough to hold a truth. He approaches, peers inside, water, but not water. Something thicker, silvery, holding reflections that twitch too quickly to track. Then slowly one solidifies. A face, his, but younger, and then another, older. Then one that isn't his face at all, and yet he knows it was. Every version of himself, real or imagined, glances up from the basin, seeing him, accepting him, letting go of him. The last image is of a blank surface, and that is the most peaceful of all. He takes a small step back and the basin evaporates. The temple fades again into suggestion, and then the light pulses once. From the floor a staircase unfolds, not down, not up, but inward, a spiral carved into the very idea of descent. He follows, every step echo with a different texture, soft earth, cool tile, warm ash, and then a chamber, perfectly round. Its walls pulse with low light, like lungs gently breathing. In the center, a pedestal. On the pedestal, a book. He approaches, slowly, carefully, like a child approaching the truth about fire. The book is bound in white leather, edges gold but dull with time. He opens it. Blank pages. Then on the third page, "This is the first day you have not been named." He smiles. A real one. Small, quiet, complete. He continues flipping pages. Each one begins to write itself only once he's touched it. Not words, not language. Moments. A hand extended. A door unlocked. A truth whispered into fog. Each page writes a choice that was never made, but still lived. When he reaches the final page, the book closes itself. It lifts into the air and vanishes. Now there is only him, and the echo of a question. Are you ready to see what you were before you believed you were something? He doesn't hesitate. Yes. The chamber darkens, and stars appear, not above, but within the walls, within the floor, within him. The entire space becomes a cosmos made of possibility, and from that cosmos, a shape forms. At first a sphere, then a shell, then a cradle, and finally a child, sleeping, but not human. A child made of symbols and silence. Its skin is translucent. Its heartbeat is slow. He watches, and he remembers, not thoughts, not facts, but structure. This child is not his descendant. It is his origin. This is what he was before language, before alchemy, before self. He kneels beside it, places a hand gently on its chest. The child opens its eyes, not eyes, light, and then smiles. Quick tangent, though not really. In ancient Gnostic and mystic traditions, there was a belief that each soul has an original form that exists outside of all earthly identity. Called the Pruton Anthropon, or first man, this archetype was said to exist before the division of spirit and matter. Some esoteric texts suggest that the return to this form is the true goal of all initiation, not enlightenment, but unbecoming. Some fringe historians argue that alchemists weren't trying to transform metals, but the self burning away identity until only this pure formless awareness remained. Of course, others just think they were trying to get rich. Either way, it makes you wonder what kind of child you'd find inside your own idea of yourself. The chamber begins to collapse, not in ruin, but in grace. The stars fold back into stone, the symbols that made up the child dissolve into dust, and the alchemist, he does not mourn, he simply understands. The pedestal is gone. The book is gone. There is only one door left. It waits in the far wall, plain, wooden, almost disappointingly ordinary. He walks to it, places a hand on the knob. But this time, this last time, he doesn't turn it. He just listens. A heartbeat on the other side. His? No, the world's. And it is ready for him. He opens the door, and the light beyond is not brilliant, not divine. It is dusk light, gentle, amber-tinted, the last stretch of sun before night folds in. The sky is veiled with thin clouds, like breath on glass, and the air smells faintly of honeyed smoke and soil after rain. He steps through into a vast canyon, silent and sunken, carved smooth by forgotten. The waterfalls on either side are high, curving inward like a cradle. The path ahead glows faintly underfoot, not from any light source, but as though it remembers being walked. His feet leave no marks. He continues forward, and the world around him shifts, not rapidly, gradually. The shadows move the wrong way. At first it's subtle, the way the shadow of a boulder stretches west while the sun dips east. Then, unmistakable, the silhouette of his body cast toward the sun, not away. The shadows of the canyon walls drift upward, as if climbing back to their source. He stops, lifts his hand. Its shadow rises, then lowers itself before his hand does. The canyon whispers, not in sound, but in demonstration. Time has not reversed, only consequence. He walks again, the shadows become more erratic. They detach from rocks and hover briefly in the air before settling again. One shadow peels off a bush and drifts upward like smoke. Another stretches itself along the cliff face, pausing as if reluctant to follow its object. And then he sees it. His own shadow no longer mirrors him. It lags. Then it starts doing something different. While he walks steadily forward, his shadow lifts its head to look at something he does not see. It raises an arm. It points. He stops. The shadow freezes. He mimics the motion, raises his arm. Nothing happens, but the shadow now inches to his side, repeats the motion with more urgency. Then something speaks. You are walking forward, but yourself is behind you. The voice is not external. It bubbles up from somewhere under his ribs. Not words, understanding. He turns. Behind him, the path glows differently, fainter, more brittle, and then he sees himself, far in the distance, standing still. Or maybe it's a memory of him, or an echo. Either way, the version standing behind is motionless, waiting. He begins to walk back. As he moves toward his own echo, the air thickens. He passes a stone arch bent in on itself like a question mark. Moss clings to its underside, and carved along the keystone is a single line. What if the path you left was still walking you? The canyon deepens. He approaches the still figure. It has no face now, just the vague shape of a person. But its posture is unmistakably familiar, and when he stands directly in front of it, it mirrors him again. This time, it speaks. You are not the only version. He doesn't need to ask what that means. He knows, this figure, this shadow was the one that chose not to forget. The self that held on, clung, refused, and it was left behind. Now it stares at him, silent, waiting to be understood. So, he steps forward and embraces it. The fusion is not violent, not brilliant. It's soft, like pouring warm milk into cold tea. They do not struggle, they merge. And for the first time since the fig tree, since the scroll, the name trade, the whispering cats, he feels whole, not because he remembers, but because he no longer cares what was lost. Fringe historians love paradoxes. One scroll from 1497 describes a place called the Canyon of Anti-Shadow, where pilgrims went to walk against their own past decisions. The act of walking toward one's shadow was said to mend ruptures in the soul, an idea both literal and symbolic. It's been linked to early meditative alchemical practices, where the umbra, the shadow self, was considered a vessel of unresolved truths. More skeptical voices claim the whole idea was metaphorical nonsense, but several medieval maps do reference a reversing path, leading to no known kingdom, only a single glyph, a door with no hinges. The debate, of course, remains unresolved. The alchemist, if we can still call him that, opens his eyes. The canyon is gone. Now he stands at the edge of a wide desert, flat, endless. Not sand, but crushed glass, shimmering blue and white under a violet sky. In the far distance a structure rises, a single spire, a door at its base. And he knows this is the door, the one the scroll spoke of, the one that opens only when you forget your name. But now, even the concept of a name is absurd. He walks across the glass. It doesn't cut. It sings underfoot, chiming softly. With every step, he sheds more, not memory, not identity, just urgency. By the time he reaches the base of the spire, he is not walking. He is being carried by his own willingness. The door is simple. Wood, iron bands, a keyhole with no key, and a handle. He reaches for it. No thought left. just instinct. His hand closes around the handle, and the door does not resist. The door swings open with the weightlessness of dream. Not a creak, not a groan, not even the breath of dust disturbed. It moves as if it has been waiting for this moment, not for centuries, but for exactly as long as it took for him to stop asking who he is. On the other side is not another world, but the absence of one, a quiet, ambient space, lit from nowhere, enclosed by no visible walls, stretching farther than perception in every direction. The horizon is not a line but a curve that feels like it belongs to a sphere you're standing inside of. He steps forward. Instantly the door behind him dissolves into suggestion. No lock, no threshold, no going back. Beneath his feet, the ground is soft, unidentifiable, like walking on a surface that's been dreamed but never built. It supports him but barely. His weight here is conceptual, not physical. Shapes begin to form ahead, geometric at first. Cubes, pyramids, spirals, then structures more familiar, a window with no wall, a staircase leading nowhere, a chair made of folded sound, and then, floating in the center of it all, a box, a small metallic cube hovering at chest height, turning slowly in place. It hums, not loudly, but with gravity, a sound that pulls. He approaches. Inscribed along the box are markings, neither symbols nor text, but visual emotions. When he looks directly at them, they blur. When glimpsed from the corner of his eye, they feel like meanings. He reaches out. The box does not resist touch. In fact, it welcomes it. His fingers brush its surface, and it warms, vibrates. A seam appears. It opens. Inside is nothing, not empty space. Nothing. A pure, perfect void. Cold not from temperature, but from potential unspent. A place where things have not yet decided to exist. And then, rising from that void, a thin ribbon, a single strand of parchment. He pulls it out. Upon it is written, "You are now allowed to be unnamed." The ink vanishes. The ribbon disintegrates. And he feels still. Not exalted. Not completed. Just right. He turns. The space has changed. Now it resembles a garden, but one made not of plants, but of possibilities. Trees that sway with winds from moments not yet chosen. Vines that bloom memories you've never had. Pools of water that reflect versions of yourself that might still exist. He walks among them. Each step leaves no trace, yet the ground responds, opening briefly as if tasting his presence. He comes upon a bench. It is simple, stone, cracked, waiting. He sits. For the first time, he feels time. Not time as it passes, but time as a presence, seated beside him, quietly sharing the view. Across from him grows a single stalk of something unclassifiable, a flower that seems to have a heartbeat, petals that blink, scentless but somehow nostalgic. A memory he doesn't remember stirs, not pain, not loss, just the faint ache of what it once meant to be. Here's a footnote from real-world esoteric texts. In certain mystical alchemical practices, the concept of unbeing was not a state of erasure but of return. The Rosarium Philosophorum refers to this as the nigredo, or black stage, a necessary death of ego before transformation begins. But in rarer manuscripts, there's a step beyond that, the lucidum nullum, the lucid nothing, not death, not rebirth, just the space in between. Scholars rarely agree on whether this was a psychological metaphor or a literal belief in transcendence beyond individuality, but those who study it say this: to be nothing is not to be lost, it is to be free. He stands again. The garden begins to recede, not fade, just shift. And then the ground beneath his feet gives way, not in collapse, but in release. He falls, or rather, he descends, through layers of forgetting, soft and slow, like drifting down a spiral of warm water and sleep. He passes through memories, but they no longer stop to greet him. They nod, then drift away. A child's laugh, folded into mist. A lantern-lit street at dusk. A hand letting go of another. Each lets him go, and at the end of it, stillness. Perfect, weightless stillness. He finds himself in a chamber of mirrors, but none show him. Each mirror reflects someone else. A woman with eyes like storms, reading aloud from a broken book. A boy crouched in a field of salt, drawing maps into the dirt. An old man sitting quietly in the sun, talking to a tree. Each of these people, some strangers, some vaguely familiar, pause, look up, and smile directly into the mirror, at him or through him. And then, each vanishes, until one mirror remains. This one shows no image, just light, white, but not blinding, warm, but not inviting. He steps toward it, touches its surface, and steps through. On the other side, a single hallway, curved, smooth, pale walls, and at the end, a small table. Upon it, a bell. He knows somehow that ringing it will end everything he was, not kill, not destroy, but close, like the last page of a book. He walks to it, lifts the hammer beside it. A single chime, it rings, and the hallway dissolves. He does not fall, he does not float. He simply arrives, gently, on a floor that isn't stone, wood, or sand, but the memory of comfort. The space is dim and warm, like a candle-lit room inside a dream you once had as a child. There are no walls, yet he knows he is indoors. A ceiling stretches above, impossibly high, carved with constellations that drift ever so slightly, rearranging themselves without urgency. They seem familiar, though no name accompanies them. Before him stands a table, upon it, a clock, not ticking, not mechanical. The hands do not move, but quiver. The clock's face is made of glass so thin, it shimmers like water. There are no numbers, only symbols, a feather, a key, a drop of ink, a curled leaf, a closed eye, and something that looks like a question mark unraveling into mist. He approaches. The clock senses him. With a low hum, the hands begin to move, backwards. The moment they do, the room shifts. The air thickens. A second table appears, then a third, until the space becomes a hall, lined with artifacts from his nearly forgotten life. A spoon with a bent handle, a boot with one lace torn, a cracked teacup, a candle stub, a journal with no pages, a feather, perhaps the one he once received in the city of second thoughts. Each object pulses faintly with recognition, not memory, familiarity. At the far end of the room, a doorway flickers in and out of focus. Its frame is lopsided, its edges frayed like old cloth. There's something nostalgic about it. He walks toward it slowly, as though approaching a version of home that never quite existed. But just before he reaches it, the clock chimes, a low, round tone. It rolls through the space like thunder, hiding under velvet. The doorway vanishes, and from the ceiling something descends, a device. A structure of gears and spindles, floating inches above the floor. It turns slowly, impossibly complex, like a spider web made from centuries. A voice, gentle, mechanical, without malice, speaks. The time has come to choose. He doesn't respond aloud. You may proceed. The voice continues, smooth as oil, but only by choosing what to leave behind permanently. From the floor, 3 pedestals rise. On each, an item. The first, a book, closed, glowing faintly. No title. The second, a mirror, small, handheld, its surface hazy. The third, a key, plain iron, cold to the touch even without touching it. He knows what they are. The book is his story, the full account of his life from cradle to this moment. If he chooses it, he will remember. The mirror is his face, who he was, who he imagined himself to be. If he chooses it, he will become again. The key is his right to remain forgotten, to pass through the door unnamed, unfinished, unbound. He stands in silence. Then slowly, he reaches for the third item, the key. The moment his fingers close around it, the others vanish. The book folds into light. The mirror shatters, then dissolves. The clock, too, goes silent. Its face cracks. Its hands drop like dead weight, and the ceiling constellations freeze. The voice returns, quieter, now. Then you are ready to enter the chamber of possibility. The floor opens beneath him, not with violence, but with ceremony. He drops through. He lands in a circular room. Its walls shimmer like heat over stone. No door, no exit. At the center, a single chair, simple and old, made of braided metal and worn cloth. Beside it, a tall hourglass, Inside, no sand. Instead, tiny stars, pinpricks of light, spiraling, tumbling, gathering at the bottom with each tick of silence. He sits, and the moment he does, the hourglass turns. The stars inside swirl faster. A presence forms before him, not a person, but an awareness, not seen, but felt. It speaks without sound. This is where you forget the shape of the world. He feels a soft tug at his spine, not pain, release. The presence continues. You have unmade yourself. You have unspoken your name. You have outlived the burden of being someone. He nods. The stars in the hourglass reach the halfway point. Historically, the chamber of possibility appears in several fragmented mystical texts, described as a place where all futures converge and none are chosen until the self steps aside. It's not a real chamber, according to historians, more a metaphor for ego death. But in some lost traditions, it's believed this chamber can only be entered after one has surrendered three things: memory, identity, and regret. A few fringe texts even hint that this space is not symbolic but architectural, real, in some secret fold of reality, a chamber that remakes those who leave it. Of course, no one agrees on where or when it is. The hourglass nears its end. He watches, not with urgency but with awe. The final stars fall, each one landing with a silent burst of sensation, joy, peace, curiosity. One by one they settle into the base. When the last star touches down, the hourglass dissolves, the chair vanishes. He stands, and the room opens, not with walls parting, but with reality blinking. Beyond the opening a single path, the last path. It leads to the door, the one that was promised, the one that isn't there until it is, and now it is. The path before him is unlike any he's walked, smooth as silk, silent as a sealed thought. It gleams softly beneath his feet, though there is no light source. With every step, the world behind him seems to fold inward, gently removed from existence as though it had finished its purpose. He does not look back, not because he cannot, but because there is no longer anything back there to recognize as his. The landscape is neither dream nor illusion. It's truth, truth unburdened by fact. Shapes form only as needed. A small bridge of silver thread spanning a rift that wasn't there a moment ago. A tree with leaves like hourglass sand falling upward. Time pulses around him, not as a current but as breath. The world inhales and exhales him. He follows the path toward the horizon, where the sky meets itself in a loop. He feels no hunger, no fear, not even anticipation, just movement, just being. Eventually he arrives. Before him stands an altar, not stone, not wood. Something older. A surface made of accumulated stillness. Upon it rests three bowls. One is full of starlight, thick and viscous like sap. One is filled with ash, coarse, warm. The third is empty, except for a single hair, impossibly long, curled into a spiral. A voice, soft and close, whispers, "Choose what to dissolve." He knows it's not a riddle, it's a release. He reaches for the bowl of ash and pours it into the bowl of starlight. The moment the two mix, they vanish, curling into a shimmer of gold and grey. The last bowl, the one with the hair, glows briefly, then simply ceases to exist. He breathes. The altar recedes, and the door appears. This door is different from the others. It is not built, it is remembered, wrought from longing, shaped by forgetting. It stands as tall as certainty and twice as quiet. No carvings, no knob, just the outline of potential. He steps toward it, expecting something, resistance, instruction, a final question. None comes. He places a hand against the surface. It accepts and begins to hum. The world darkens, but not with shadow, with memory. Around him swirl moments spinning into focus one by one, none his, but all familiar. A woman dancing on a rooftop during the first snow. A child naming constellation with no star map. An old man building a house from broken clocks. Lives unlived by him, but woven into the thread of something larger. The door breathes in. So does he. Then he steps through. On the other side is not light, not dark, just return. He is standing in a circular room made of translucent stone. The floor is warm. The walls are covered in runes that fade even as he looks at them. and at the center of the room, a table, upon it, a vial. It glows faintly. The liquid inside shifts between colors, not colors from nature, but from emotion, the color of release, the color of unknowing, the color of rest. He lifts the vial. A final message is etched into its base. Alchemy of the self is the forgetting of structure. He drinks. The liquid is cool, sweet. It coats his throat in silence, and instantly something deep inside him unlatches. A click, not physical, essential. He feels it ripple through every version of him that has ever wondered what it means to be, and they all fall quiet. In some apocryphal texts, rare ones kept hidden even in forbidden libraries, there's a tale of an alchemist who did not seek gold or fame or transmutation of matter, but transformation of identity. One text call him the Unnamed, another the First Doorwalker. It is said that he passed through a temple that only appears when no name is carried, and no memory burdens the traveler. He returned never, and yet was seen everywhere. Skeptics dismiss it as mythology, but those who believe, really believe, say that this temple isn't somewhere. It's when, and it waits still, the vial vanishes, and so does the room. He finds himself in a field of tall grass that sways in a wind he cannot feel. The sky above is soft purple. The sun is neither rising nor setting. He walks. The grass parts. A head, a figure. It is not him, and yet it is. A form built from light, from peace, from endings made whole. The figure turns, smiles, and says, "Nothing," but the meaning is clear. There is nothing left to carry. The figure steps aside, and there it is, the final door. Not a passage, not a portal, just an end. He walks to it, places both hands upon its surface, closes his eyes, and when he opens them again, there is only stillness. The stillness does not press or echo. It simply is, not absence but presence without need. A moment stretched beyond time's ambition. He stands within it, no longer waiting, no longer seeking. If this is the place beyond the door, it does not declare itself. There are no trumpets, no celestial voices, no crowns offered or burdens lifted, because everything he carried is already gone, and there is nothing left to receive. The air, if it is air, is perfectly calm. Each breath he takes does not fill him, but rather balances him, like matching two halves of a scale until they vanish into symmetry. The ground is smooth beneath him, and when he looks down, he sees neither shadow nor reflection. He has become unmeasured. He begins to walk. There is no direction, and yet each step feels correct. The world is vast and soft and made of silence shaped by motion. Behind him, the path folds away. In front of him, it unfurls, blooming with his decision to move. Then, without warning, the landscape around him opens like a turning page. He is in a forest, but this time the trees do not speak, the cats do not gather, the leaves do not whisper names, because there are no names left, only presence. He comes to a glade. At its center, a pool of clear water. It reflects nothing. He kneels beside it, unsure why. Perhaps he expects an image, but there is no face to reveal. Instead, the surface stirs as if aware of his gaze. A shape rises from the pool, not a creature, not a figure, but a memory made whole. It stands before him in the form of a question, a moment he never understood. He looks into it and does not attempt to answer. The moment folds, accepts his stillness, returns to the water. He drinks from the pool. The water is cool, tasteless, but as it passes through him, he feels a soft pressure in his chest, a lock turning, a door within a door, and the echo of a voice, not his, not recent, gently speaking. "You are forgiven for existing." Above him, the sky shifts color, from lavender to the soft grey of old parchment. The wind carries nothing but quiet, and in that quiet something emerges, a single bell chime, not nearby, not far, just enough. He follows it. He walks into a clearing of mirrors. Yes, again, but these are not reflections of self. They are reflections of moments. Each mirror suspended from a tree, swaying slightly in wind that doesn't touch him. He sees things he doesn't recognize. People he never was, lives never lived, choices never made. A woman running with a lantern across a frozen lake. A man writing poems into the walls of a prison he built himself. a child climbing a tree just to hear what clouds sound like from above. None of these are his. And yet each feels like it could have been. A mirror cracks. He watches the fracture crawl like lightning across its surface, then fade. Nothing shatters, because there's nothing left that needs to break. From the far side of the clearing, a path of woven grass leads downward. He follows, not because he must, because it is there, at the bottom, a door, simple, small, familiar. He knows this one. He made it long ago, perhaps in a dream, perhaps in a memory before his first breath. It has no handle, just a word carved into it. Stay. He reaches out and touches the wood. It is warm, like skin left in sunlight. The door does not open. Instead, the world behind it shifts. A new space, a room, a cradle, a library, a sky, all at once. It is the clock that rewinds dreams. He steps into it. A chamber filled with floating timepieces, some ticking, some silent, all suspended, like stars in orbit. They drift slowly, glowing with inner memory. Each one hums a different rhythm. He does not touch them. He simply walks among them. Each clock pulses as he passes, sinking briefly with his heartbeat, then releasing. They do not want to be held. They want to be witnessed, and then forgotten. Here's a curious footnote in alchemical texts. The horologium somni, the dream clock, was a concept whispered among philosophers who believed that all time loops upon itself, and dreams are echoes from loops we never lived. Some texts suggest that the dream clock wasn't a machine, but a place, a sacred site where initiates stood in silence until their dreams rewound themselves back to their source. Of course, most mainstream scholars dismiss this as metaphor, as they often do, but those who have stood in quiet rooms long enough, they believe. The alchemist passes through the clocks until only one remains. It is small, worn. His hands turn slowly, not backward, not forward, but inward. He watches it tick once, and the world blinks. He is somewhere else. He stands in a garden, soft, familiar, not strange, the kind of place you visit in dreams but forget upon waking. There are no walls, no gates, just sky, grass, and the faint sound of wind chimes far in the distance. He sees a bench. He sits. He breathes. And for the first time there is no desire to move forward, because there is no forward, only this. The stillness, the peace, the door, wherever it was, is behind him now, or inside him, and that is enough. He sits on the bench until time forgets to pass. The garden breathes around him, softly, without demand. Flowers open and close without rhythm, as though responding to the thoughts he no longer thinks. A stream murmurs in the distance, but it's not a stream made of water. It flows with color, liquid emotion, rippling gently over stones shaped like vowels. When he finally stands, it is not because he is called, or summoned, or compelled. It is because stillness, too, has seasons, and something in him knows that this moment of rest has passed. The bench fades behind him as he walks, vanishing without fanfare, an exhale in the long breath of forgetting. The path is narrow now, almost shy. It weaves through tall grass that parts at his ankles and closes again behind him, erasing his passage. He no longer feels himself moving. The world carries him, as gently as an old song. Ahead, a stone arch rises. It is broken at the top, fractured, like the crown of a king who forgot why he ruled. Carved into one pillar is a phrase, not in letters but in sensations. The feeling of saying goodbye too soon, and meaning it too late. Beneath the arch, a creature, not beast, not person, a shadow shaped from light. It has no face, but it watches him, and it speaks without sound. You have forgotten enough to remember what matters. He nods. The creature bows slightly and dissolves into petals. He passes through the arch. Now he walks in a canyon of glass, not mirrored, transparent. He sees through the walls into other selves, not memories, versions. He watches a self in red robes, arguing with a council of scholars. Another, quiet in a library, feeding parchment into a fire one sheet at a time. A version of himself that chose to build instead of search. A version who never left the orchard. Each pane shows a choice abandoned. Each one flickers, then freezes, then fades. He continues walking until the canyon ends in a narrow bridge. Not stone, not wood, just if. The bridge of if stretches across a chasm with no visible bottom. On either side of the gap, fog swirls upward like lost breath. The bridge is incomplete. Only a few steps of it appear, suspended in the air, leading nowhere. But the moment he steps forward, another plank materializes, and another, and another. This bridge does not carry you, you carry it. He walks slowly, deliberately, each step a decision, each one birthing the next. The fog whispers, what if you had stayed? What if you had named yourself? What if you had refused the door? He keeps walking. The questions fade. The bridge leads him to the far side, and the world there is, soft, not in texture, in intention. He stands on a slope overlooking a plain of silver grass. It ripples in silent applause. Ahead, a tower, not tall, just old. A tower made from unanswered questions, coiled and stacked like stone. There is no door. Only a spiral stair wrapping its outside. He climbs, and with each turn, something loosens. A knot behind his eyes, a pressure in his chest. A word he once tried to remember. Gone, gone, gone. At the top of the tower, a single window. Through it, the door. Not a vision, the door, the final one. He descends the other side of the tower, emerging into a courtyard carved from moonlight and regret. It is quiet, still, but not empty. Figures sit around a pool, their bodies translucent, their faces undefined. Not ghosts, not spirits, possibilities. They do not speak, but they acknowledge him. He walks past them, and as he does, they vanish, one by one, leaving only the pool. He kneels beside it. The water reflects no face, only the door. He reaches into the water, his fingers pass through, and touch the handle. Here's a curious note from obscure monastic texts. Some sects believed the true door to enlightenment was not found through study, but through release of expectation. They described it as the gate that only appears when you stop trying to find it. In rare cases, monks would spend decades in silence, waiting not to be called, but to forget they were waiting. Some records refer to a ritual crossing called ambulatio sine mente, walking without mind, where the initiate wandered until the door arrived, never the other way around. And here, now, that practice finds its mirror. He grips the handle. It is warm, familiar. It does not resist. He opens the door and finds a room, small, wooden walls, a table with one chair, a window showing a garden that blooms with no season. On the table, a candle, and next to it a match. He strikes it, lights the candle, and sits. The flame dances. He watches. There is nothing more to do, nowhere to go, no one to become. And as the flame flickers, the room grows dimmer, softer. He leans back in the chair, closes his eyes, and for the first time, sleeps, without dreams. He sleeps not as a man, not as a memory, but as a rhythm. The world narrows around him into breath. Slow, deliberate, peaceful. There is no night, no ticking clock to measure the distance between moments. The flame on the candle burns steadily, its light not flickering but pulsing, as if matching the heartbeat of a world that no longer needs to rush. When he wakes, the room is the same, the table, the window, the garden beyond. But something in the air has changed. A subtle softness, like an apology, whispered by the wind. He rises without urgency. Every movement is fluid, as if his bones have remembered their original purpose, to carry stillness. He walks to the window and opens it. Outside, the garden moves with life, not noisy, not wild, just content. A breeze touches his face, and for a moment, he thinks he might recall a name. It hovers on the edge of his awareness like dew, but dissolves before it can take shape. He doesn't chase it. There's no need. The door, after all, opens only when you forget. And he has. He leaves the room. There's no threshold, just a shift from being inside to being part of what's outside. The garden stretches far now, vaster than it appeared from the window. Pathways wind lazily between flower beds and ancient trees, none of them labeled, none of them repeating. He walks without choosing. The path chooses him. And then a clearing. At its center, a stone table. Upon it, a mirror, round, smooth, no frame, just surface. He approaches, looks in. This time, he sees something. Not a face, not a past, a gesture, a hand releasing a bird, a voice saying, "Go," a moment of letting. The mirror ripples once, then turns dark. It has accepted that there's nothing left to reflect. He moves on. Soon he arrives at a place that isn't really a place. Just pause. A grove where the light filters through leaves that don't seem to attach to branches. The air tastes like old lullabies, and the earth beneath his feet hums with a vibration he doesn't try to name. Here, he finds a woman seated on a rock. She has no shadow, and yet she feels solid. Her eyes, when she looks at him, do not search. They recognize. "You made it," she says. He nods. "I thought you might." She gestures beside her. Another stone. Empty. He sits. They say nothing for a long time. Then, softly, she speaks again. "Do you want to see it?" He doesn't ask what. She knows. He nods. She reaches into the air and pulls out a door. Tiny, perfect, made of folded light. She places it in his palm. It vibrates faintly, not with power, with memory, not his own. Every version, every name he ever could have worn. He closes his hand around it, and it becomes warm, becomes nothing, becomes him. The woman smiles. "You don't have to go anywhere anymore." He understands. He doesn't need to chase the door. He is the door. Every choice, every silence, every forgetting, built it. He rises, not to leave, to become. Let's step aside for a moment of myth. There's an unverified alchemical parable buried in the pages of a burnt manuscript from 1502, describing the final door as not a threshold one steps through, but one that is worn, that the true alchemist, once fully transmuted, ceases to open doors and instead becomes the passage by which others find their way. It's whispered that these door-bearers leave no grave, no monument, only quiet places where lost souls feel suddenly understood. Of course, scholars scoff, but those who wander often speak of a room they never entered, a name they never spoke, and the comfort of almost remembering. Back in the grove, the trees lean inward, as if bowing or listening. He turns once more to the woman, but she's gone. Only her stone remains, and a flower growing from where she sat. He smiles, steps off the path, and walks into the tall grass. The wind thickens, the sky turns soft grey. He comes to a river. It's not water, it's time, not rushing, just moving. On its banks are objects, masks, gloves, bits of song, things others have shed. He kneels, not to collect, to add. He reaches into his chest, no pain, just warmth, and removes something small. It glows once in his hand, then fades. He places it gently among the rest. The river accepts it, carries it away. He watches until it disappears around a bend. Then he stands, and finds himself at a hill. One last climb. The sky above holds stars now, but they're not distant. They pulse within him, reflected in his skin, each one an ending and a door. At the hill's crest, there is no gate, no passage, just a horizon, soft, endless. He stands there, breathing the stillness, until a whisper comes from within. "You are not the one who walked here." He agrees. "You are not the one who needed the door." He agrees again. "You are now the one who waits." Yes, and so he does. He sits, closes his eyes, and listens. The wind returns, soft as a secret. It brushes against his face, carrying with it no scent, no chill, only intention. He sits at the crest of the hill, legs crossed, hands resting gently in his lap, not meditating, not watching, just present. Behind him, there are no footsteps. In front of him, the horizon curves infinitely, like the spine of a story with no final chapter. The stars overhead shimmer like gentle questions. Each pulse seems to speak a name he's forgotten, or perhaps never knew. And yet, the sound soothes him. The night here is not dark, it's deep, as if the sky has folded inward to cradle those who have nothing left to chase. A faint hum begins, not mechanical, not natural. It is a rhythm he once heard inside the oldest temple, beneath the well, past the doors made of silence. It is the door hum, the sound that follows those who no longer need to open anything. He looks down at his chest and sees light, soft gold, flickering through his ribs, as if he's become a lantern. He understands. He is the door. Now, and somewhere someone else has begun to forget. He lies back on the grass. The stars rearrange above him. Slowly, silently, a spiral forms. He watches. Each star in the spiral winks into place, like a note in a lullaby. And then, faintly, he hears footsteps. Not his own, soft, careful, uncertain. A traveler, a seeker, a version of him, or someone like him, approaching the first of many thresholds. He closes his eyes, and the light in his chest flares just slightly, like a beacon behind a veil, a signal not to guide but to invite, because the door does not open for those who want it, only for those who've stopped needing to knock. The sky lightens slightly, not morning, just adjustment, and now the hill feels like a space between stories, a cradle for endings that are actually beginnings. He no longer feels like a person, more like a pattern, a still point that listens without ears and welcomes without gesture. The hum continues. It fills the earth beneath him, the grass around him, the stars above him. Even the air hums now, a slow note that vibrates the soul instead of the skin. And then the whisper returns. It is almost time to fade. He breathes out, not in sadness, in completion. In esoteric writings, there's mention of a threshold consciousness, a state reached when the seeker becomes indistinguishable from what they sought. Alchemical traditions describe it as the union of vessel and elixir, not transformation, but dissolution. A few ancient texts suggest these rare individuals do not die, they unanchor, dispersing into moments, locations, and dreams of others who need them most. And so, across cultures, they became known by many names: the forgotten, the unnamed guide, the silent witness, the door that walks, the door that waits. From far below the hill, a child appears, not a real child, an echo. They step gently through the tall grass, their form flickering slightly with every blink. They do not speak, but they approach the figure at the top, the figure who was once an alchemist, now only a shimmer held together by intention. The child kneels and listens, and in that listening, something is passed. Not knowledge, not memory, but permission to forget and to begin again. He touches the child's forehead. Light transfers. A thread unspools from his chest into theirs. It doesn't weigh them down. It lifts them. Their eyes widen, not in fear, but in recognition. The same way he once looked at a scroll beneath a fig tree, wondering who had written those strange words. The door opens only when you forget your name. The child smiles. The alchemist, now beyond that name, smiles too and begins to fade, not vanishing, joining. The wind carries his last breath across the field, down the hill, into the sky. It curls around trees, slips into books, lingers at the edge of mirrors, and waits for the next seeker to feel just lost enough to deserve the path. He does not resist. He does not hesitate. He becomes space, he becomes time, he becomes silence, and in doing so, he becomes the door. One final historical aside: in a rare 14th century fragment recovered from a collapsed monastery, a marginal note reads, "He did not ascend, he did not disappear, he became the space between what was and what must come, the door that is not seen, but always felt." The rest of the page is scorched, but the writing stopped right there. Perhaps that was enough. The hill is empty now. The grass sways. The wind hums. Far below, another traveler wakes in an orchard beneath a fig tree. They open their eyes, and in their hand, a scroll, its seal still warm, its message unchanged. The door opens only when you forget your name. Beneath the fig tree, the traveler wakes slowly as though surfacing through warm water. The branches above rustle with leaves, too green to remember autumn. One fig, overripe and swollen, splits silently, spilling sweetness onto the traveler's shoulder. There is no panic, no confusion, only stillness and the sense that this moment has been waiting a very long time. The scroll in their hand is sealed with a symbol, a serpent swallowing its own tail wrapped around a door. It hums faintly in their palm, not with sound but intention. They do not open it yet. They do not even look at it. Not immediately. The traveler rises slowly, brushing sleep, or the idea of sleep from their clothes. Their body remembers how to move, but nothing else does. They stand, they look toward the horizon, and they begin to walk. The path from the orchard is worn by memory, not the traveler's, someone else's. It winds through low grass and tall reeds, following a stream that flows in and out of hearing. Birds call above, in languages that no longer attach to names. The wind is kind. It pushes from behind gently, never too firm, never hurrying. Eventually the traveler finds a small town. Stone buildings lean inward like conspirators, sharing old truths. Children stare briefly, then return to chalk games that make no sense and yet feel inevitable. An old woman offers bread without speaking. A boy tries to sell a map with no destinations on it. The traveler accepts all of it, because something inside already understands this is not a place for remembering, it is a place for releasing. At the edge of the town stands a fountain, dry, but not abandoned. At its base, carved in delicate script, speak only the name you are willing to forget. The traveler steps forward. They do not know a name, but one rises anyway, from the chest, from the ribs, from the spaces between breaths. They whisper it. The sound barely exists, but the fountain hears, and water begins to flow. The reflection in the water is unclear, not murky, just reluctant, like a mirror that has agreed to reflect only what you no longer wish to see. The traveler watches it ripple, not expecting clarity. The scroll in their pocket warms. They remove it, break the seal, unroll the parchment, read the words once again for the first time. The door opens only when you forget your name. They fold it once, twice, tuck it into their sleeve, and leave the town behind. Let's pause for a moment. In alchemical thought, the journey begins with prima materia, the first matter, undefined and formless. The traveler beneath the fig tree embodies that state, empty of identity, full of potential. In some lost treatises, it's said that alchemists must walk backwards through themselves before they're allowed to move forward through the world. That forgetting is not failure, it is permission. Mainstream historians miss this nuance, often reducing such tales to metaphor. But those who have tried to follow the door know, it is not metaphor, it is invitation. The traveler's steps carry them through forests where shadows drift in the wrong direction. They pass by ruins where doorframes remain but buildings do not. They sleep in fields where the stars above shift into constellations that vanish when given names. And one night, deep in that dreamless quiet, they meet a figure, sitting by a fire that emits no smoke. A figure with a face they cannot see, but a presence that feels familiar, not personally, but cosmically. The figure smiles without smiling, offers a small object, a compass. The traveler accepts it. The needle spins briefly, then stops and points inward. The figure speaks, not in language, in certainty. When you have traded your last truth for a better question, the door will find you. The traveler nods, because even though the words are new, the meaning is remembered. They sit together until the fire fades. When the traveler wakes, the figure is gone, but the compass remains. It points nowhere, which means they are close. The world begins to bend, not physically, but through feeling. Familiar places now wear unfamiliar colors. The traveler sees an orchard, another fig tree, another morning, another version of the same moment. And they understand this is not a journey from point A to point B. This is a spiral, a return without repetition, each loop wider or deeper or softer, until, finally, the door. It stands without announcement. No stone, no wood, just a shimmer in the air. It looks like stillness made visible. The traveler approaches. They do not ask for permission. They do not knock. They simply breathe, and the door begins to part. Not as a gate, not as a passage, but as a mirror, one that no longer reflects. A single voice speaks, from within, from without, from before. Welcome back. The traveler steps forward, and the door closes softly behind them. Not with finality, with understanding. Because this is not the end, it is just the next forgetting. And the next door waits for the next traveler. who somewhere is waking, beneath a fig tree. Inside the door there is no corridor, no hall of judgment, no stairway to ascend, just a hush so complete that even though chooses to whisper, the traveller stands in the silence, not waiting, not wondering, simply allowing. Light curls gently through the air, not from above or ahead, but from within. The space itself, as though the room is exhaling memory. Shapes begin to gather, not furniture, not artifacts, moments. They collect around the traveller like dust in soft sunlight. A market stall with 2 ripe apples. A hand letting go of another. A teacup left unwashed. These are not memories, not quite. They're echoes. The impressions of lives not entirely lived. The traveller touches none of them. They simply observe, and as they do, each moment slowly dissolves into golden mist. Behind that mist, something else becomes visible. A temple. Its structure rises impossibly high, not from stone but from agreement, the way a dream constructs its walls only while you believe in it. The traveller walks forward, through the golden haze toward the temple's massive archway. It's not blocked, not guarded, not locked, but something in the air insists, do not enter carrying what you still believe about yourself. The traveller stops, and stands perfectly still. The last assumption slips from their shoulders like a coat. They step forward, and enter. Inside, the temple is quiet, but not empty. Each wall is made of slow-turning memory. Shapes move behind the stone like reflections on water. These aren't the traveller's memories. They belong to others. Generations of seekers who came before, passed through, dissolved, returned. Their faces shimmer and vanish before becoming clear. Their voices hum a low chant, not words but the sensation of surrender. The traveller steps deeper into the temple, following a soft path of light. It curves downward, spiraling gently, toward the heart. The spiral ends at a chamber, circular, featureless, except for one thing in the center, a bowl, simple, black, endlessly deep. This is the vessel of unbeing. The traveller kneels beside it. The bowl shows no reflection, only stillness. This too is a choice. They place both hands on the bowl, and the temple breathes. A low vibration begins, resonating through the stone, through the traveller's spine, down into the soles of their feet. Their name, what remains of it, rises like steam from their skin. They do not resist. It lifts from them, letter by letter, like sand in a soft breeze, until they are only breath, only openness, only door. According to a rare sect of pre-enlightenment mystics, the act of truly entering the temple of unbeing could not be initiated by the willful. It could only occur once a seeker's name detached from the spine, the final anchor of selfhood. These mystics believed the soul had weight, not as substance but as structure, and that forgetting one's name was the only way to return to its unshaped form. Their order disappeared before the 16th century, but their idea lingers, in doorways that don't exist until you stop needing them. The traveller withdraws their hands. The bowl now contains something, a small flame. It does not flicker, it waits. They lift it. It doesn't burn, it calms. They cup it in their palms, and turn slowly to face the wall. And there it is, the final passage, not a door, just an absence. A shape that the world forgot to finish building. They step through, and they are no longer walking. They are becoming, first light, then vibration, then pattern. They do not rise, they dissolve outward, becoming scent on a fig tree, dust on an old scroll, a child's question before it forms words, and beyond all that, they become a space in the world where others can find silence. They become a temple without walls, a whisper across the centuries, a place in the story where the page forgets what it was about. The world continues, but just slightly softer. Somewhere, an alchemist stirs a pot. They pause, as if remembering something they never learned. Somewhere, a wanderer dreams of a door made of cloud and wind, and they wake with tears on their face, though no sorrow lingers. Somewhere, a child points to a shadow on the wall and says, "That's where the door is," and the adults smile. But one of them remembers, just enough, to keep walking, back in the temple, though now it is only the memory of a temple. The flame still burns in the bowl, untouched, awaiting the next forgetting, awaiting the next seeker, awaiting the one who will wake beneath a tree, scroll in hand, and wonder who they are, and why that doesn't matter anymore, because the door has already begun to hum. And now the world tilts slightly, as if adjusting its balance in anticipation of another arrival. Somewhere, far from the temple's echo, a stone cracks in an abandoned courtyard, not because of pressure, but because something unseen has just passed through. A change, a ripple, the signature left behind by a traveller no longer bound to their own story. A gentle breeze curls through an orchard. The leaves whisper across each other with familiarity, though no voices speak. In the grass, an imprint remains, a body that once lay there, a question that once stirred, but no footsteps lead away. Only the wind moves. The scroll is gone now, or perhaps it has moved on to another pocket. Another seeker, another waking, back in the no space that was once a temple. The bowl remains. The flame inside is smaller than before, not weaker, just quieter. It has settled into itself, like a sigh that never had to be exhaled. Around the bowl, the floor shimmers faintly, and then the shimmer spreads up the walls into the ceiling, down into the stone's bones. And with a breath not taken, the temple fades, not collapses, not disappears. Fades, because forgetting is not destruction. It is just another form of remembering. Outside of time, where door and traveller and question are the same, something stirs, not a being, a possibility. It takes no form because no one is looking. It takes no name because no one is asking, but it waits. And in that waiting, it becomes shape, a new beginning. A child somewhere stirs in sleep. Their brow furrows, their fingers close around nothing, and yet they grip it tightly. They dream of a tower, of a bowl, of a path made of soft names falling away like dust. They do not know what it means. They will not remember the dream, but they will carry its absence. And someday they will feel drawn to silence. And in that silence, they will hear the hum. In a corner of a forgotten city, a mirror fogs despite no breath. Its silver curls at the edges. It shows not a face but a field, a hill, a bench no longer occupied, a candle flickering in a room no longer built. The mirror sighs, then returns to stillness. The world continues to forget, and that is good, because remembering everything makes us heavy, but forgetting makes us move. In one version of this story, the alchemist never left the orchard. They found the scroll, read it, set it aside, and went on to live a long life brewing tincture and translating moonlight into medicine. They never spoke of the door again. They didn't need to. They carried its shape in their silence, and every person who sat beside them felt something lift, something they didn't know they'd been holding. In another version, the alchemist vanished without trace. Their lab dusted over, their work half finished, but each of their notes ended with the same symbol, a door drawn with one stroke, and never explained. The door isn't a place. It's a moment. It arrives when you stop demanding it, when your name no longer fits your mouth, when your story begins to fray, and when it does, it doesn't knock. It simply opens and waits. There's a legend that a great wandering library exists, shelved in a storm, bound in the teeth of whales, catalogued by thunder. They say one of its books contains no pages, just a single phrase, over and over. The door opens only when you forget your name. The book has no title, because it does not need one. You find it when you've forgotten what you were searching for, and when you do, you turn the first empty page and begin to read. Outside your window now, something shifts. A breeze, a creak, a soft blink in the fabric of ordinary. You may think it's just the house settling, or your mind playing tricks, but perhaps, just perhaps, the door is testing the air, and if you're very quiet, if you've let the day fall far enough behind, if your name feels heavy on your tongue, you might hear it, that low hum, like a whisper, like the start of forgetting, like the welcome of an old friend. Don't worry, you're not late, you're exactly on time. In fact, you've already taken your first step, and the door, it's already open. It always was. Somewhere, just outside the map of waking life, the spiral begins again. But this time, it curves inward, not toward a center, toward a softness, a hush, a moment so gentle, it barely qualifies as time. The door waits, of course, not in arrogance, not in stillness, but in calm readiness. It waits not because it must, but because waiting is its nature. Inside this pause, a new traveler breathes for the first time, not as a baby, not as a child, but as someone who has unknowingly chosen to leave behind something they once believed was unchangeable. Their name. They do not know this yet. They only know that something doesn't fit anymore. Their laughter feels too tight. Their reflection glances back with a question. Their footsteps echo in rooms they thought they understood. This is how it begins, the unraveling, the quiet joy of no longer needing to be the thing you were told you are. They walk through their life differently now, with an ear tilted, not for answers, but for pauses, with eyes that begin to notice the gaps. In conversations, in patterns, in dreams, they begin collecting moments, not souvenirs. A phrase overheard on a tram, a glance exchanged with a stranger, the feeling of almost remembering something that has no shape, and one day they find it, folded beneath an ordinary stone, tucked inside the crease of a dream. A scroll, its seal is warm, its paper smells faintly of figs and fire. They open it, and there it is again, the sentence, the riddle, the invitation. The door opens only when you forget your name. They do not understand it, not yet, but something in their chest lifts, like an anchor unsticking from the seabed of identity, and they begin to walk differently, not toward the door, but without turning away. Elsewhere, in the corners of the world where stories rest their heads, an alchemist writes a final note. They do not sign it. There is no need. The words are not instructions. They are reminders. You are allowed to forget. You are allowed to change. You are allowed to disappear without being lost. In a forest, a tree bears fruit. It did not bloom. A bird sings a song it never learned. A stone hums faintly when the wind passes, and no one notices, except for the ones who are ready to. And that's enough, because the door does not need everyone. It only needs you. The moment you realize the question matters more than the answer, the second you decide to sit still in the middle of a choice, the instant your name feels like clothing you've outgrown, that's when the hinges begin to warm. That's when the hum becomes music. That's when the story remembers it never had a plot, only rhythm, only becoming. And what of the alchemist, the one from long ago, the one who first walked the door? They are no longer separate from the telling. They are not remembered. They are known, in the flicker of a candle that refuses to go out, in the quiet voice that tells you it's okay to put the book down and just rest, in the gentle moment when the world stops asking who you are and begins listening for who you might become. Now the door grows quiet, its hinges cool, its shape blurs, because it is no longer needed, not for now, not for this breath. But don't worry, it will wait. It always does. In the stillness between thoughts, in the dream that follows a waking too early, in the half smile you wear when you recognize something you've never seen before, there is no lock. There never was. Only the name, only the forgetting, only the becoming. And now you're ready. So rest, breathe, let go. The door is open. You've already stepped through. And now, dear traveler, as we reach the end of this long, quiet journey, let's slow things down even further. Let each word settle like snow. Let each sentence drift towards sleep. You've walked far, not through mountains or forests, but through the deeper terrain of unknowing. The alchemist, the door, the flame, the bowl, the scroll. Perhaps they weren't places or people at all. Maybe they were pieces of you, folded into story. Maybe, somewhere in the gentle hush between reality and dream, you found yourself walking beside the parts of you you'd forgotten to listen to. And that's okay. Not everything needs to be solved. Not every name needs to be remembered, because forgetting can be a kindness, a pause, a release. There's nothing left to figure out tonight, nothing left to carry. The door does not need your effort. It doesn't ask you to do anything, only to be here, gently, fully, sleepily. So, if your eyes are heavy now, that's perfect. Let them close. like petals at dusk. Let your breath slow, let your shoulders drop, let the world behind your eyes bloom into whatever it needs to. You're safe here. There's no beginning or ending anymore. Only this, only rest. You've already passed through the door, and on the other side, there's only peace.